not a single person supported me leaving. And I went and started as a student again. So when we look at the numbers and the cliff note of what my life is now, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I live with whom I want, where I want. I do what I want. I am a millionaire and I own several companies, and combined all of these companies do well over 7 figures. Welcome. I'm very excited to talk about overcoming obstacles to success, specifically because people ask me a lot about my success that I have achieved recently. And it's one of those evergreen questions that you get as an entrepreneur who has achieved certain things in life. Everything you do on your path to success is really for you. As Shanae likes to say, who joins me here on stage, it's you versus you. It's really not between anyone else. And as you keep doing what is you versus you and getting better at it over time, you will see that success comes to you. It is inevitable. And what I have personally found over the years is that it matters a lot that you get to decide what makes you feel successful. We live in times, mostly due to social media, where we are too focused on comparing ourselves to other people. And that is a problem because we do not all have the same circumstances and the same opportunities when we move through life and through business. Which is why it's very important that you develop a certain fairness toward yourself as you go on your journey towards your destination that represents success for you. Before I go into 4 aspects that I think is very often in between people's success, I will tell you a short story which I believe is a great metaphor for some of the key takeaways of today's talk. Over the course of the past 2 weeks, I have become very successful. I have been very lucky in trading a crypto coin where I invested $30,000. And then overnight, the value of that investment climbed to $8 million. And then, of course, on that wild ride up to the 8 million, people were like, awesome, sell now, take profits, sell, get out, you're at the top, get out. And of course, that is so very often happens with an initial coin offering, especially those that are meme coins, which are coins that are just purely driven by a culture. After the first day, the chart drops almost back to zero, which is normal for initial coin offerings. So here we are, day number 2. After all that excitement, my holdings now are worth, instead of $8 million, they are worth $200,000. And people come to me and they lament. They say, oh no, what a catastrophe. You lost your $8 million. Why did you do that? I told you to get out early. I told you to take profits. The world comes to an end. And that is not at all the way I looked at that experience. Because first of all, is the glass half full or is it half empty? At that point, I had still turned $30,000 into $200,000. Isn't that reason to really celebrate? So that's how I saw it. Moreover, and probably even more important than those $200,000 was the following. Very rarely do you get the chance to truly experience an asset in which you invest. Basically, at hour number 2, the coin had been released for 2 hours, and you go up with the ride to the top, and then it all falls. So during that time, there is a number of insights you gain, some deep fundamental understanding of tokenomics, of liquidity, of timing, of price action, of human psychology and how they behave during such a time is invaluable. Those lessons mean more to me. That deep understanding means more to me than that loss. And this is another very important lesson generally for me in business, is that nothing really beats going through the experience. You can be told so many things and hopefully you can take shortcuts by listening to your mentors, but actually walking your own path and experiencing things firsthand, that is generally what gives you deep understanding. Now, a few days have passed since that coin dropped back to where my holdings equaled $200,000. And you know what? Because this specific coin is not just a meme coin, but a governance coin for a decentralized project. Slowly but surely, the value kept going up again. And this time, it wasn't mooning, as we say. It wasn't increasing a 200, 300x within a day. No, it was very healthily climbing up. And as we speak, my holdings are worth, again, $2.9 million. Now, am I gonna run now and sell these coins like people told me in the first time? No, absolutely not. I happen to have 37% of the entire supply of that coin, which means that in the long run, if I believe in this project, and you should invest in projects that you understand and believe in, this could potentially mean that those $2.9 million will turn into $370 million. That's actually very possible. But it has to do with being patient and being involved and understanding what you're doing. So in that short story were so many ingrained lessons that combined represent why so many people have difficulty getting access to success. So let's break those down a little bit. I wrote down 4 that I want to go over today. First, most people do not take enough risks. I'm talking about calculated risks. And I'm not specifically necessarily talking about investing either. I'm talking about being in a position, having a mindset in life that if you believe in something and if you think you can make that work, you can speed up the progress of that thing by taking risks. A key example for me definitely is my immigration to the United States. I came at the age of 28, at which point in time I had a very stable and predictable career with the Luxembourg law enforcement. At that point, I had worked for the Luxembourg government for 10 years, and everything was on autopilot. And then my name got drawn for the green card lottery, and I had the opportunity to finally take a stab at my American dream. Now, I could have easily chosen and listened to all of the naysayers. When I tell you, my dear friends, not a single person, not my mother, not my best friends, not my partner at the time, nobody at work, not a single person supported me leaving. Everybody wanted me to stay. And against everybody's advice, I turned in my sabbatical and I went and started as a student again and started my journey, my American dream. And all of that led to, of course, me now being a successful person. So when we look at the numbers and the cliff note of what my life is now, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I live with whom I want, where I want. I do what I want. I have an amazing business partner, Sinead Moray. At present, I am a millionaire and I own several companies, and combined all of these companies do well over 7 figures. So that is success, right? But it all started with my willingness to give up something that is very stable and predictable, a job with the Luxembourg government where you cannot lose your job by law and where your salary needs to be adjusted to the cost of living by law. It's a life on autopilot, but I used to call it my golden cage. So you need to decide, are you going to opt the golden cage, or are you going to dare opening that cage and see where your flight can take you? So most people don't take enough risks. Number two, most people constantly live above their means. And I don't only mean that in the financial sense. I also mean that in circumstances they create for themselves for which they are not ready yet. And those circumstances are effectively like anchors that tie them to the ground. Starting families too early, buying houses too early, deciding on universities too early. All those big life projects where you make a commitment for life financially, circumstantially, societally, are a big problem, and to me go into the bucket of living above your means. A lot of us are just not ready for that big long-term commitment at the point where we make it. Had I made all of those commitments, the likelihood of me actually immigrating would have been very low because there's so many reasons not to go. The children get uprooted. My partner doesn't want to leave. I have bought this huge home and I cannot afford to leave because I need the income. All of that is typically what stands between people and their success. But really also, let's talk for a moment about living above your means financially, because that is obviously a big problem. A lot of my freedom that I had to move when the moment was opportune and when the moment was right was very closely connected to me being in a position where I was actually doing it right, living below my means. And I could say, listen, yeah, maybe doing this will go wrong and it costs me something, or maybe starting to freelance will cause me to have very little income over the first 2 years, but I'm fine. I'm free to do it. And that's very important. As you know by now, I have these holdings close to $3 million at this point. Well, what I could do, right? I could take $1 million of that money and I could finally buy that Lambo and that yacht and buy this and that. Do you know what I bought after that gain? Zero, nada, nothing. I keep living the exact same way as I did 3 weeks ago, because I know that I need to live below my means. And I know that that particular investment is a high risk investment, and I need to see how it develops over the long term before I make any big moves. So a lot of people do not live below their means, not only financially, but also circumstantially. And that is a strong obstacle between themselves and the success they are seeking. Which leads me to my third point today, the fear to focus. This is a big one. You need to have one goal, and oh, surprise, once you have that one goal, you need to align every single thing that you do so that all the roads can lead to that goal. And that is what a lot of people in business just don't get. They are very much afraid to focus. And that just tells me that they don't believe enough either in themselves or in the product or service that they represent. And that is very important. The fear to focus because they think that they don't leave their options open is a big, big problem, because if you have no focus, then you cannot utilize all your energy and all your expertise and all your time and all your skill set to try and pierce through a wall that represents your breakthrough. So if we think about physics, for instance, you have the option between taking a nail and hitting with a hammer on the nail to go through the wall, or you can take a large piece of paper, place that against the wall and lean against it. What do you think pierces through? The nail, of course. And yet, what we see most people do on LinkedIn, in business, in PR, in life, is they use the paper. I don't know why, but they do it. Now, let me tell you a very, very powerful side effect of focusing is that people see you as an expert. People understand that you are knowledgeable and focused enough in what you are doing so that you can focus on that one thing. And that has a very nice side effect as well, which is everybody wants to learn and work with a specialist, an expert. As part of my journey, right after deciding to start freelancing, I did a first job and then I decided on my positioning. And I found that overall my life experience lent itself very well to service the healthcare industry. So instead of networking and introducing myself as a marketer or web developer, which was what 100 other people were doing, I started holding out my hand and saying, hello, my name is Shankar. I focus on servicing free market medicine physicians. Super, super specific. And within several months, I had worked myself to be one of the few specialists in marketing that type of provider. And that was huge because what happened afterwards is that everyone, of course, in that industry came to me, but also a lot of other professionals who saw that I was specializing said, hey, I'm not a physician, but I'm a lawyer, or I'm not a physician, but I'm a therapist. You know, we are very similar in how we deal with people. Do you think you can help me as well? Long story short, it was hugely beneficial. And I want you to make a decision to focus and to not be afraid to focus. People have very low memory. If you want to pivot, it's always possible. Trust me. What you say today is what you say today. If for whatever reason, in a few months, you want to pivot, it is possible. Which takes me to my last point of today. The last one is that most people care too much about what other people think of them. And it cripples them. It really cripples them because they spend more time worrying about that. What happens if my colleagues of the past see that I fail? What happens if my present network thinks that the new thing that I want to pursue is doubt-worthy? There's like so many reasons to worry about what others think. And again, we live in times where that is super, super prevalent because everything is so much exposed on social media and people are so fast to go and be trolls and say something nasty in the comments. And not only does that happen, we actually, as a community, very often enjoy that kind of entertainment. So it's really no surprise. But if I cared too much what others think, I would have done nothing of what would have eventually led me to being so successful. Me living the American dream, me having navigated myself to being a 7-figure business owner, to being a millionaire at this point, none of that would have happened without the 4 elements that I just shared with you. So let me repeat them for you. Most people don't take enough risks. Most people live above their means. Most people have a fear to focus, and most people, they care too much about what others think. And let me also tell you that nobody is immune against these 4 elements. Even I have weak moments. We all have those weak moments, and it's important to acknowledge that to you. I don't try to be a Superman or anything. I just try to, in a majority of the days in a month, I try to be very courageous. I try to live a life as a person and as a business owner that I can be proud of, where I know that I will have made an impact that satisfies myself. But I'm going to bring it back to where I started, and that is with the understanding that nobody can take success away from you if you feel successful. So you get to decide what that is. Because if now, for example, I lost my $1 million investment overnight, believe me, trust me, I would not feel any less worthy. I would still be successful because of everything combined that I have achieved in life and that I have let myself experience. When Shanae and I welcome people into Growth Academy, very often it starts out with the willingness to grow their LinkedIn accounts, their followers, and their impact. And then often it transitions into, well, now that I have that attention, what can I do with it? How can I grow my business? How can I grow my operations? How can I achieve my version of the American dream? And very often, one of the 4 points that we touched upon today is in between them and success. So that means that most of the time we are in our own way and we need to learn to get out of our ways. And that happens by just being very much aware of that. And the more we remind ourselves that that is the case, the higher the likelihood that we can get out of our way.
I think that when you're looking at success, obstacles are probably inevitable. So unless you get better at overcoming them, then you probably won't get very far. And that's just how I've seen it. I treat each obstacle as an individual challenge, so to speak, and navigate the skills necessary to learn from it and then move on. And I think that what separates someone that doesn't move forward is that they take the obstacle like, oh, well, it was meant to be this way, or, oh, I did everything I could, or this is just a sign, or whatever. And they don't necessarily see the possibility of overcoming it. It's inevitable. And it's a skill set that if you want to succeed, you're going to have to develop no matter what.
Do you agree with what I said about most people that join Growth Academy? At some point, it's really them being in their own way.
I think that's the case for probably everyone, which is why the most successful people have advisors, mentors. They really do surround themselves with people that could see something that they can't. And it's either a lack of knowledge or a lack of application or a lack of courage to apply the knowledge, which is still a lack of application. I think that's short term. And then I think long term is really what separates people that I think really want something and don't, because it's fun to create content for a month, maybe 3. But what about 3 years? What about 5 years? What about 10 years? And most people won't even do it for a month. The best advice I could give you is this, and this is when I've sat across the table from a billionaire. A billionaire understands one thing, and it's that markets, business, energy, whatever, is like a heartbeat. So one day you could have a really amazing day. And the biggest difference between someone like that and someone that catastrophizes everything is that they know that a low heartbeat is coming. So you could have a high, and then you could have a low. But they're prepared for that low, and they don't take it as a catastrophe. And they also don't allow that low to stop them from having another high, like a heartbeat. That's really the biggest difference, is that they expect it and they're prepared for it.
Yeah, I love that. And just thinking about the heartbeat also in investing, it just applies so much. And then in investing, particularly when things go down, that's when the huge opportunities are made. You make your money actually when the price goes down and making the right decision.
Just had something I wanted to add to the conversation. I wanted to, not that it's always a great thing, but it is what it is. I wanted to normalize the fact that we are inherently wired to be risk adverse. That is the way our brains work. Going back to caveman days when we're constantly trying to keep ourselves alive, our brains are wired to be in a threat response whenever we see anything different, whenever we're in a different situation, whether it's with people, whether it's a situation at work or at home, or we're in an environment. Our brains are constantly looking for threat. Brain's main job is to keep you safe. And so we are inherently wired to be risk averse. And we really have to work diligently. And obviously, Shankar, you are what I call a unicorn in some respects as it relates to investing and having had that type of an overnight success, quote unquote, if you will. And then being able to navigate that, watching it go down and still keep the mindset that you still had 200,000 when you'd only invested 30 and seeing that as a win. And many people have a difficult time doing that just because the way that we are wired. So our jobs in life, at least I believe, as individuals who are contributing to society on a daily basis in whatever way that we are here to serve, is to recognize that change is the one constant. My expertise is in change and also in neuroconsciousness. And change is the one constant that we can definitely rely on. We know it's coming. If we're not in the middle of it now, we'll be in the middle of it at some point in the future. And our job is to create those new neural pathways, those new experiences, that new mindset, another way to look at something, and give ourselves, what I like to say, save some space for grace, because it's coming, and realize that it is just the way life is. And it's your job to decide, as Shanae was saying, sitting across from a billionaire, and how the billionaire minds work, having overcome and also recognizing that something else is coming, and how will you meet that moment? We get to decide how to meet that moment.
Absolutely. I mean, very well said. Thank you for sharing that, Sonia.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. It was so interesting how nobody believed in you or supported you, but you still went out on the limb and kind of really went and took advantage of that opportunity to move to a new country, which I know can be scary. I've done the same thing. I was just wondering, now that you become such a massive success, all those people that said, no, you shouldn't leave, you should stay here. If any of them, if they've all turned around and said, oh, we were so wrong, or if they never said it.
Well, all of this is very recent, right? And nobody said that they were wrong, no, but I am very lucky that everybody seems to really be happy for me. And that is something that is actually a good sign, because I do know that my partner in life and business, Andrea, she's facing some different reactions. And generally, this is a topic where we've spoken about that also, Shanae and I, where people don't like seeing you succeed because of various reasons. They are either jealous or they are afraid to lose you. But I think that, personally speaking for myself, I've been on this journey long enough where I probably weeded out that kind of people. And there's the saying, it's lonely at the top. And to some degree, that is very true. And that's also good, because you need to have white space and brain space and space to make those bold decisions. And if you are within an environment that doesn't let you do that, it's very difficult. And I went a little bit on a tangent here, but that's just what came up for me. But yeah, no, nobody admitted to that their quote unquote wrongdoing.
That's really interesting to me, because when I finally made the decision to start traveling, I went through the same thing. All of my friends who were entrepreneurs were like, what are you doing? You're supposed to start an office. And I was like, I thought we all agreed that the reason to become an entrepreneur was to be able to travel. So I went through something very similar, and I still have people in my life, like, first they think, oh, you shouldn't do it, or you shouldn't start your own business, because people who aren't entrepreneurs don't understand it. And then when you succeed, they're like, well, you just got lucky. They still justify, like, you still should have done the other thing, right? So it's interesting that at least you're getting that other level of support, which I haven't always experienced. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It was really amazing to hear that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that is very interesting, the you are so lucky part. That just you wait, you've been lucky so far, but something awaits you just around the corner. And I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. and of learning that you take calculated risks, to bring it back to what Sonia was saying, which is very true, that our brain is, for very understandable reasons, wired to avoid risk. And I think entrepreneurship, to a large extent, is become aware of that and then take calculated risks. So, for instance, to take it back to my example of where I invested the $30,000, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. And I would definitely not have done that if I didn't have certain reserves otherwhere, where I know I can, in the worst case, I lose this money, I'm fine. Like, it's going to be a bad day for me as an investor, but I'll survive. I'm fine. I have lived well below my means for many, many years, and I can stomach that loss.
Yeah, I think the thing that defines an entrepreneur is, well, even if I lost it all again, I could rebuild from the ground up because I've already done it once. That's the difference between luck, like, oh, I got lucky, I did it once, versus I know I can do it again and again. Like, the number of people who have told me, wow, you're like an overnight success. I was like, yeah, if you don't count when I lived on my friend's couch for a year and a half or in my mom's basement for a year, it did happen overnight. It wasn't instant success, except for the 2.5 years of that. If you don't see the hard work, then it does seem like luck. But the hard work and the hard decisions and kind of stepping out of your comfort zone are like such a critical part that doesn't get talked about enough. So often we're trying to just show everyone the success that we don't show everyone the hard part along the way there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for all of us content creators, it's very important to also show that part and talk about that aspect. This has been such a great talk. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Shanae. Definitely follow Shanae if you are not already. You probably are. But if you are not, definitely follow her. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Bye.